Next up, Agility Robotics co-founders Damion Shelton and Jonathan Hurst will be demoing their bipedal fulfillment robot, Digit. They're joined by TechCrunch's Kirsten Korosek. Kirsten, take it away.
Hello and welcome, Jonathan and Damion, to TC Sessions Robotics. For those of you who might not be familiar with Agility Robotics, the startup spun out of Oregon State University in late 2015 with an aim to commercialize research on bipedal locomotion with the Dynamic Robotics Laboratory. The company first introduced its ostrich-inspired Cassie robot in 2017 as a bipedal research platform. Then came Digit, which added an upper torso, arms, sensors, and additional compute to the Cassie design. And that was introduced in February 2019. And that's about the time that I became familiar with Agility, because the company struck a partnership with Ford to test how two-legged robots and self-driving vehicles might work together to solve the curb-to-door problem. More recently, Agility raised $150 million in a round led by DCVC and Playground Global, and Amazon Industrial Innovation Fund was also involved, which makes a lot of sense because Agility's been working a lot with warehouse and logistics. So, Damion and Jonathan, I am super excited to have you here and learn what Agility has been up to lately. I believe you have a demo for us. Jonathan is at the Agility office in Oregon, and Damion is joining us from their office in Pittsburgh. So Damion, I want to ask you, what are you just briefly going to show us today? Or what is Jonathan going to show us today?
Yeah, thanks. We're excited to show some of the general purpose capabilities that we've been working on with Digit. As you mentioned, we are focusing on warehouse work right now as the sub piece of logistics that we're taking the hardest look at. And what we're going to be showing off is the ability of Digit to function as a platform for general purpose work. And our whole vision with what Digit is as a platform that allows you to turn physical work into a software application. So Jonathan will be showing off some of Digit's abilities in that regard.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to see what Digit can do because it's been a while. Jonathan, why don't you kick things off and show us what Digit can do?
Sure, thanks. So Digit is here in kind of our mock-up warehouse where you, as with many situations, there's the plastic bins, which are very common in industry, and people or machines may be filling these with products and packages with the individual pick and place. And then typically this is a fairly automation resistant kind of application where people are picking up these totes, carrying them over and setting them on conveyor belts. But it's something that we really need a lot of automation for, and that's what Digit is for. So I'll show Digit here. Just go ahead and pick up a couple of totes and put them over on the conveyor belt. And you can see us getting started with this application.
So, Jonathan, is the idea here for Digit to be working alongside humans, or in doing this exact same job, or will the application be more Digit working alone or several Digits working alone on these sorting bins?
Yeah, think of it as Digit doing the rote things, Digit doing the tasks that are completely already process automated. And kind of augmenting the human workforce. So to start with, Digit is going to be in its own little area here. And it is something that the robot can see me and can walk around and things like that. But in an industrial application to start with, when we deploy it, the robot's going to be in its own space and doing this job. And then anytime it gets confused or something happens, a person can easily come into this space and help the robot out. It just allows a lot of flexibility.
Interesting. So I noticed that as you approached Digit, Digit stopped. So I'm assuming that's sensors. And is that just a safety protocol so that the robot will stop? And can a human being move it?
Yeah. So think of it this way. There are a lot of different ways in which a robot can be safe around people, right? And one of them you might imagine, if a person gets right up near it and starts to mess with the robot shuts down. But if the robot falls, that's not great either. You really want the robot to just slow down to a stop and I don't know, not run into you, right? So I can show you like physically interacting with this robot. It's moving around and trying to do its job. And this is something I wouldn't recommend, suggesting that people working in the warehouse do, but as an engineer and someone familiar with the robot, it's no big deal. The robot is kind of like a person in how it is always dynamically balanced. So I'm annoying the robot right now, It's trying to do a job. It's like, please let me do my job. If I hold it back a little bit, but you can see it recovers. And if there are obstacles on the ground, it would step on and over and around those. It can see me right now, is not trying to come towards me. If I pull on Digit's hand, it's going to try and stay balanced. So it's sort of arguing with itself. It wants to not run into me, but it wants to stay balanced. And it's going to go back to doing its job when I'm not in the way.
So we all like to assume that human workers and robots will work happily alongside each other. But how stable is Digit if, let's say, a human alongside maybe has more nefarious ideas? Can you tip Digit over, or what happens if you kick the robot, which of course we don't want to have happen, but how stable is Digit?
Well, I think you can ask the same question of how stable is a person. If you walk up and kick somebody, it's not going to be received well. And Digit is going to fall if you really push it too hard, just like a person would. If you shove over sideways, Digit might swing its arm or something like that and run into you. But I don't see it as more dangerous than a person who you would treat the same way.
Interesting. So, Damion, when we first met a few years ago, really, I was interested in agility because of this connection to working with Ford and delivery. But now there's this focus on warehouse under the logistics sector. How did that change, and why did that change occur? Or are you still working on the delivery side of things as well?
Yeah, we actually still are. In fact, we were just over at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in the UK with Ford as recently as a week and a half ago. I think what there's been is a growing realization, and I have to give a lot of credit to the engineering team, that the progress on the robot has in many ways been faster than we expected on some of the bulk material handling sides of it. And that's combined with the questions you were just asking about the safety profile. How do you deal with safety issues? And as we started looking at it, it doesn't seem like a necessarily enormous insight on our part in retrospect, but it's easier to control the work environment if you're inside a controlled environment like a warehouse than it is outdoors. And I think what we're seeing, again, the questions you're asking are good ones, which is how do you maintain performance in a environment where people are going to do surprising and unexpected things? And that's easier to manage in a controlled environment than it is outdoors. We actually still feel very strongly that last mile delivery is probably the forever home of robots because it is a task where legs specifically are a very unique offering relative to other solutions. It's one of the few technologies that can demonstrably navigate 100% of human environments because of our ability to navigate those environments. And so even if you hypothesize that a world 50 years in the future where all warehouses at that point are new greenfield construction that are fully automated from the scratch, there still is a need for robots to move through the outdoor environment. But it's really, again, to get back to your line of questioning, it's easier from a deployment and a safety perspective to focus on indoor tasks. And the reality is that that market is so large, it can keep us busy for quite a while.
It's interesting. You talk about, first of all, Jonathan, I saw that you were leading Digit around. Is that a new development of Digit? Were you able to do that before in earlier iterations?
It's really just Digit is trying to stand in one place. Okay. And when I start to move the robot, it's trying to stay balanced.
Got it.
Just like if a person is standing there with their eyes closed and you start to push them, they're going to have to take steps. It's no different from that. So when it's doing this job, though, it's a very different environment, right? You've set it up to say, there's boxes here, and I want you to pick up this one, then that one, then that one. And it's kind of stringing together a script of different actions for the robot to do. So that's a whole different, setup of autonomy for the job it's trying to do, rather than me interacting with it and just keeping, dealing with the fact that it's trying to balance and dragging it around.
So, Damion, we were talking about robotics as a platform and really how agility robotics is focusing on that. And so I'm wondering if you're going to then open up this to developers, similar to how Boston Dynamics opened Spot up to developers.
Yeah, the sort of the brief answer is we already have. In fact, we got our start doing that when you had mentioned the Cassie robot. That actually had an API that exposed effectively 100% of the low-level control on the robot to the early Cassie customers 6 years ago. As the platform has gotten more mature, we have tightened access to the very low-level API stuff simply because it's not efficient. Generally speaking, if you're trying to expose UAV controls to someone who, say, wants to develop an aerial drone, it's a lot easier to have the UAV company simply provide you an API that says, hey, go to this point in space, as opposed to giving you torque control over the multi-rotor. And so the API around Digit has evolved along those lines, but there is a full web API for the robot already that's been provided to all of the existing Digit customers. So we have tightened up some of the low-level stuff, but there is an API right now. We are going to continue to support that over time. We're excited to continue adding features that make that increasingly useful to customers who are not us.
So I also want to add to that the API is something that our team uses when they're developing these applications and these workflows. They use our API. So as the API continues to mature and so on over time, it's going to be a lot more useful to everybody.
Interesting. Well, you're flush now with $150 million of fresh funding. And so where are you putting that those funds to work? I know you've been on a hiring spree. You've doubled your workforce from, I think, 65 to more than 130 people. But what's next for Digit? That's what I'm most interested in. For example, what's the next iteration of Digit going to be in terms of applications, but also on the hardware side? Is Digit ever going to have hands, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll let Jonathan answer the hardware question, and I can talk about the business piece.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the applications that we're doing right now are the home runs. There's such huge markets, and if we can do these things, when we do these things reliably and at human rate and so on, that's really what makes the company. And we've got a lot of the solution kind of here, but improvements are things like self-charging. The robot goes to its own charging dock. Yes, the robot will have hands. And the hands are not going to be a human hand like this. They're going to be something that's very specific for the use cases that we want to achieve. We're also going to have a bit of a head on the robot. And along with the theme of everything we've done, where it's kind of physics first and function first, that head is about indicating to people what the robot's about to do. It's also about putting antennas and sensors up there. And so a few of these things are just continuing to refine and evolve the robot for its function.
Just a quick follow-up. For the head, is this going to be, are you going to use, for example, like LiDAR or other sensors? And so we shouldn't be expecting this for it to look human-like, but instead be more focused on those specific types of sensors? Or is there going to have some other function to the head?
There's other, so the LiDAR is right here, and we'll stay there. And the head is going to have, GPS antenna, Wi-Fi antenna, 5G antenna. It also has additional stereo cameras looking out to the side. And on the front of it is a screen with a pair of kind of animated eyes that are really helpful for indicating what the robot's about to do and what its focus is. So it kind of allows people to not be surprised about the robot's behavior. It's an intuitive indication of what the robot's about to do.
Okay, last follow-up question, because I have to know, is it going to be able to speak? So we'll have a mouth or some other way of communicating.
We do have a speaker on the robot. I don't think that it's time to talk to the robots yet. If you talk to Siri or you talk to Alexa, they don't always do what you want. And especially for a robot that's going to be doing physical things in the world, or for just something that looks something like a humanoid, people are going to expect a human level of performance out of that. And so I'd like to make sure that we manage the expectations so people treat this like a working animal, perhaps. It's a partner, but it's not a peer. And so I don't think that human level verbal is the right task for the near future, but certainly moving forward, that'll come.
Well, I cannot wait to see the next iteration. Damion, is there anything else you want to add in terms of where you're going to put that extra funding to work, future applications perhaps on the software side? Yeah,
so we're actually expanding, like the hardware team is by our best estimate, somewhere between 75 and 80% of the size that it needs to be. And a lot of the work in this, we were talking before the recording started about, sort of how we've compared and contrasted historically with the iPhone. And the big frontier as smartphones have developed is not wild evolution of the core hardware platform. It really is on the software side of it. And so things like enabling cloud fleet management, working with our customer systems, integrating with the warehouse management systems in partner locations. And then a lot of the stuff that frankly I find really exciting that we were able to deal with a lot of the COVID lockdown problems and the subsequent international supply chain disruption by the fact that we've been very vertically integrated on our own manufacturing process. And so a lot of what we're investing in as a result of the round that we just closed is continuing to build out our US manufacturing presence and vertical integration of our supply chain, which when looking at recent sort of successes in pure technology companies has been sort of a theme that we've seen with how companies have managed international disruptions. And we're quite happy to continue to expand our US-based manufacturing efforts.
Wonderful. Well, we're all out of time. We're way over time, actually, but this was so exciting. And thank you so much for sharing with us what Digit has been up to. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.